old professors actually call me narcissistic. Indirectly, but... Out on the blue highway. Out on the blue highway. I guess one of the frustrating things about your job, even if you make a lot of money, which definitely takes away a lot of the frustration. I wouldn't know, since I never made any money, but is that it doesn't relate to nature. It doesn't relate to the immediacy of the task at hand. It's all kind of far removed, you know, digitally remembered and filed. And the personalization of the endeavor is somehow lost in the shuffle of life. Thank you, Lisa, for that phrase. In Man, Nature, and Woman, Alan Watts talks about that, why people become so frustrated with their lives. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that what they have to do for a living, you know, has no kind of kickback, no feedback, except the monetary one. And at a certain point, no matter how much you're getting paid, if it doesn't make any sense to you anymore, or it's something that you really think is maybe even bad, then like, you know, you're gonna wake up in the middle of the night feeling like you are lost in space and orbiting backwards forever. You may feel that way anyways. Because I do, you know. I do. I know those things, you know. I think it's kind of like, I was talking to the guy in the Boheme bookstore about Marshall McLuhan and Susan Sontag and Emmett Grogan, sort of like forgotten heroes, you know, real heavy thinkers that have laid down some imprints that, you know, grabbed him and me. But in McLuhan's book, Counterblast, he has a picture of a bomb going off, nuclear bomb, you know. And the line underneath it, there is no finish line, except for the kind that, you know, we put on ourselves. So just when you think you have it all together, and you have a good understanding of everything and everybody, that's usually when the rug kind of falls out from under you, and you realize that things aren't exactly the way they seem. They're almost like imaginary qualities of real things. Of real things. It's not real, but that's not the way that it feels. Yeah. Like, you know, some kind of little duck pond. The question comes to me after watching The Outdoorsman this weekend where Buck was shooting pheasant. Seemed to have a pretty good old time. Do you think you have to have the killer instinct to be an outdoorsman?
No question about it. I would say beyond a shadow of a doubt. I know I went hunting one time in my life, and like we were cruising around and we saw, it happened to be a doe. But I had like a scope on this rifle, and I just put the rifle on the doe, you know, and it was right there in the crosshairs. And there was no way. I don't care if it was a buck or doe, whatever. I couldn't pull the trigger on something like that. There's no way. It was weird. And I got my degree in wildlife, and it's funny because you could see the different approaches to wildlife just within that discipline, you know. Some people were into wildlife and they were hunter types, and it really gave them good insight into where to go and, you know, good contacts and all that. And some people just, you know, they're conservationist types, and they hate to see people hunt, you know. They hate to think that the value of wildlife is found in blowing them away, you know what I mean? That's the only value people can find in wildlife, and that's the only thing that can generate revenue. And so it's like, it's just unfortunate from a conservational standpoint, but definitely I can appreciate going out there. I can appreciate walking a field with pheasant flying up all of a sudden. It's just, you know, I mean, that's pretty much roots, I think, as far as human kind kind of goes. I think we hunted for a long time, so I think it's instinctual, even though I don't have it.
So no one will be calling you anytime in the near future Edward Buck Gainey, is that true?
Absolutely true. I never could be deemed that. That's for sure.
That I speak no more, and my voice be still, as it was before. I will speak no more.
What you think like this? You think these Olympics are kind of cursed? Cursed. Yeah.
Like the Tanya Harding thing?
Like not just that Tanya Harding thing, you know.
But
like,
the Tanya Harding thing is like, that's bound to happen.
You think so?
Once in like every 20-year cycle.
Has it ever happened before though in figure skating?
I don't think so, but it's bound to happen sooner or
Well, you
later.
think competition's gotten so weird?
You know what? I think Tanya Harding ought to be exempted from the Olympics. That's bottom line. She ought to be out of there, kicked out. She's history.
They had a thing on TV.
Why is that?
Night where,
That doesn't set
the Olympic team
that, you know, as far as the standards for U.S. Olympics, that doesn't set very good standards at all.
You hear that?
You know.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So.
Who are the ones that we call our friends? These governments still in their own.
You have this relationship that's going, then it's basically dissolving, right?
Well, I think the more I start...
One of the things is I used to play golf with them. I don't do it anymore. You know what I mean? It's like
I used to
those
play golf
little
every
things.
week. I used to play golf
there you
every
go.
week.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So
But I think a lot of it had to do
through
too,
sports, you definitely it expressed or represented.
Yeah, I think
the breakdown of the.
Yeah, I think when I started to read a lot, though, that really things changed. I became a lot more questioning about everything when I started to read a lot. My dad didn't really want to play that.
You question whether.
Yeah. You know, I think initially one of the reasons I became interested in sports was just because of the relationship I had with my dad when I was younger. And, you know, he tried out for the Olympics when he was a kid in the 50-yard dash. And he wasn't that much older than me. You know, 23 years was a pretty young father. And he had the best jump pass on the block. And we used to go out and play catch all the time. And even when I was, like, up to my teens, we'd, like, you know, play golf on weekends. But then the more I started to, you know, read, you know, different types of authors with more radical ideas that, you know, didn't have to do with a certain kind of conventional conservative style that he was into, we just started to grow apart. And it was no longer like we were almost on the same team, you know. And it was funny how you could have such a strong bonding type of thing when you're a kid, and remember it fondly even to this day. But just like as you grow into your own form of manhood, differences arise, and like somehow or other you're no longer on the team anymore. Never happened to you, Ed? Anything like that?
No, nothing really ever so tragic or, you know, occurred to me that haunted me in a way that presented itself like that. Actually, with me, I grew up in a really pristine or idealistic environment, essentially, if you think about the relationship your dad has in terms of sports. Because my dad was like yours. He was totally revered. He was looked up after by everybody on the block because, I mean, when he played with you, he'd commentate as he'd play the game and stuff, you know what I mean? He'd come out, and it wasn't just like he was playing with you. I mean, he was into it. I think we all know by, you know, how taxing children can be. You know, it's one thing just to even look after kids and go, okay, well, honey, you know, go take off, I'll look after the kids. It's another to go, you know, I'm only going to look after the kids. I'm going to go out there and have a good time with these kids. And that's what, you know, my dad was able to do, and for sure it was a heavy inspiration for me in the future. And I've always had, you know, a place in my heart to play with kids too. And I don't know if it came from because I saw my dad and the great times that procured.
What was his line for his, like, favorite hook shot?
Oh, yeah, well, he'd get a thing where he'd have all 5 or 6 of us would be kind of clawing at his thighs or his hips. And he'd put up his little hook shot, and he'd go into the corner and he'd say, Jackie Horner from the corner. And it was awesome at it. He just had this hook that would go in so much. It was just, I mean, maybe it was because, you know, it was the only shot we'd let him get off, because when you have 5 or 6 people trying to maul you, about the only thing you can do is a fadeaway hook. So.
brotherhoods, you know. Well, what set you on this revolutionary suicidal road?
Well, I'm hoping it's not suicidal, but it is a desire to change the world, and I think that the world, there are a lot of people in the world that don't embrace change, and the world needs to go through its natural cycles. It needs to continue to change, continue to move, and as we move from the end of one millennium to the beginning of another one, which is the transitions happening right in the next 2 years, there's a lot of people who are going to fight that, and some of the things that I'm going to say, and I do say out in public and through my music, are things that they're not comfortable with it, even though they know it's the truth. And I think that that's what the situation is.